Trump is bored of this war and wants it over. Whatever. Maybe it wasn't the best thing to start if you didn't have the patience to actually see it through. That's what his supporters of the war might say. I mean, those of us who have been against it from the beginning would like to see it wrapped up, whether it's out of boredom or not. It's really too bad that the cost of American lives isn't the motivator. It's that Trump has moved on to other things because he has the attention span of a gnat.
Preaches, sister. Now, after President Trump announced the indefinite ceasefire between the United States and Iran, which, by the way, I'm not even sure Iran agreed to. Trump just announced it, but nonetheless, the blockade on Iranian vessels remains, which is why Iran is saying that they will keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. So in essence, there's a double blockade still in place as the global economy begins to really fall apart. Just yesterday, Lufthansa, which is one of these major European airline companies, announced that they are already canceling 20,000 flights in order to save jet fuel. And the domino effect of this conflict, of this war, is absolutely disastrous. And some are really concerned that Trump went in, took the advice of the Israelis, which you never do. You never take the advice of the Israelis, ever. But he did it. He thought it was gonna be an easy war. Wasn't an easy war. And what did we get in return? Khamenei was replaced with a younger Khamenei. By the way, all of the older IRGC members who were assassinated were replaced with young men who tend to be a little more, energetic and a little more quick to shoot from the hip. So not a win there for the United States. The other thing to keep in mind is, we didn't get regime change. Okay, fine. We did get something though, and that was the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Now there are countries who have to pay tolls if they want to transport cargo through the strait. And some of the countries that happen to be allies or friendly with Iran might get some special deal. We here in the United States, we're energy independent. We've got nothing to worry about. Why are our gas prices up then if we're energy independent? Oh yeah, that's right. We're talking about a global market. So when you have less supply and demand remains where it is, costs go up for ordinary people all across the globe, including here in the United States. And that's if you're lucky enough to only suffer that consequence. Because if you go to some Asian countries, they're rationing fossil fuels. They're rationing oil as we speak. Just a complete and utter disaster. Now, after President Trump announced this indefinite extension of a ceasefire with Iran, these blockades stay in place. And then what happens? Well, the embargo was expanded to cover all Iranian vessels on the high seas or those carrying goods that could be used by Iran in the conflict on April 16th, according to notices from the US Navy. So this is when the Trump administration implemented this blockade on vessels traveling to and from Iranian ports. And they did succeed a little bit when it came to blocking transit. So for instance, US forces have detained one container ship in the Gulf of Oman so far. Congratulations. US Central Command also said this week on Tuesday that the US Navy had directed 28 vessels to turn back to Iranian ports since the blockade began. So I'm sure the US is really feeling themselves, right? I mean, we did a blockade on Iranian oil as Iran maintains a blockade of the Hormuz Strait, meaning that we still have far less supply of what we need, not just oil and gas, by the way, fertilizer, which is incredibly needed, necessary. We're gonna deal with increased global hunger as a result of this fertilizer now being blocked because of these blockades. But here's what the reality is, and something that the FT has done a really, really good job covering. Iran has something known as a shadow fleet. What is that? Hold on. So as a result of all of this, Trump thinks he's crushing the Iranians, right? And he even told CNBC in an interview that the blockade has been a tremendous success. But Trump is either lying or he has absolutely no idea that the blockade is being circumvented by the Iranians. So let's go to the FT's reporting, shall we? Tens of ships have managed to circumvent the blockade. According to Vortexa, at least 19 tankers with links to Iran have passed through the US blockade to exit the Gulf. At least 15 have entered the Gulf, heading toward Iran from the Arabian Sea. And this is a good thing. I'll explain why in a moment. But let me continue with the rest of the reporting here, where the FT also notes that at least 6 of those that left were confirmed as carrying cargoes of Iranian crude oil, amounting to 10.7 million barrels. Iran's oil, which is normally sanctioned, tends to sell at a discount to Brent crude. Assuming a $10 discount, that volume would represent revenue of about, that's a lot of money, $910 million. Okay, oops. So the US blockade, here in American media, you would be under the impression that it's working perfectly and it's really applying pressure to the Iranians. But if you pay attention to better media, for lack of a better word, they are actually reporting the truth, and these shadow fleets are real. They are able to get their oil out of that area and transport it to where it needs to go. And the reason why I say that's a good thing is because it is easing the cost of fuel. It is. That's the reason why in the very beginning of this war, Donald J. Trump lifted the sanctions that had been implemented on Iranian oil, because he wanted to ensure that there would be at least some supply getting out into the market, even though it was the Iranians. And then he threw a temper tantrum once he realized that you can't get the Iranians to cave just because you wrote some mean messages on Truth Social. They're a little more sophisticated than that. Now, I am not a supporter of the IRGC, but my opinion about the IRGC doesn't matter because I don't live in Iran. The only people whose opinion matters are the Iranian people who had been terrorized by US and Israeli bombs for weeks until Trump announced this 2-week ceasefire.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.